Have you ever heard a noise in your house late at night and convinced yourself it was nothing? Maybe a creaking floorboard, a door settling, the wind outside. But what if it wasn't? What if, for just a moment, you caught a glimpse of something that shouldn't have been there? The people in this video experienced exactly that. Some woke up to voices inside empty rooms. Others found themselves being watched by figures that vanished whenever they got too close. And a few may have brought something home that never left. These are some of the creepiest incidents ever caught on camera. Number 1. Woken by laughter. Imagine waking up in the middle of the night to the sound of someone laughing inside your bedroom. That's exactly what happened to a man who lived alone in a small apartment. At first, he thought he might still be dreaming, but the laughter continued, echoing through the dark rooms around him. Grabbing a flashlight and his phone while lying in bed, he began searching for the source of the laughter. All of a sudden, a pale hand briefly sticks out from the narrow gap. This freaks him out. He steps out of bed with this flashlight still in hand. He grabs a nearby tool to protect himself. He walks up to the closet and opens it as quickly as he can. Nothing is there. Before he could process what had just happened, a loud slam echoed from behind him. Then came a blood-curdling scream from the hallway. He spun around and pointed his flashlight toward the darkness. He got the courage to open the door and see what was happening on the other side. For a split second, a face appeared at the far end of the corridor, staring directly at him before disappearing from sight. The recording ends shortly afterward, leaving viewers wondering whether the man had just encountered an intruder or something far more disturbing. Whatever was laughing inside that apartment vanished before he could get a closer look. Unfortunately, the next encounter began with something that refused to go away. Number 2. The knock at midnight. A woman was sitting alone in her living room one evening, scrolling through her phone while her dog rested nearby. It was a quiet night, and nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Then a sudden knock at the front door shattered the silence. At first, she assumed it was a visitor, but something about the timing felt wrong.
What the fuck? Too scared to open my door.
Feeling uneasy, she grabbed her phone and started recording before approaching the entrance. As she slowly moved closer, her dogs became alert as well, staring intently toward the door. That's when she noticed something creepy. A dark shadow was present near the entrance, lingering there for a few seconds before seemingly disappearing into thin air. Nearly 2 hours later, the knocking returned. This time it was louder and more deliberate. Already on edge from the earlier encounter, she approached cautiously while recording once again. Then a voice spoke from the other side of the door. It sounded familiar. The voice claimed to be her mother and asked to be let inside.
Gabe? Gabe, it's your mom. You should come out. You've been there for so long. Gabe? Come out.
For a brief moment, she considered opening the door, but something didn't feel right. After a while, the door opened by itself. Quickly, she shut it again. Then the knocking and the voice returned. She asked the entity for her name, but there was no response. To this day, there is no explanation for this strange encounter. Whoever was standing outside that woman's door knew exactly what voice to use. The person's experience in our next story was different. By the time he realized something was there, it had already been following him for weeks. Number 3. The shadow behind him. A man named Dustin had spent months working overnight shifts at a remote mountain hotel, and lately something about the place felt wrong. It started with small things, strange sounds in empty hallways, the feeling that someone was standing just behind him whenever he walked through certain parts of the building. And then there was the nausea. No matter what he tried, the constant sick feeling wouldn't go away. One night, while making his usual rounds, an alarm suddenly began sounding for no apparent reason. Hoping to figure out what had triggered it, Dustin pulled out his phone and started recording as he walked through the nearly empty hotel. At the time, he didn't notice anything unusual, but later, while reviewing the footage, he spotted something that made his stomach drop.
And now the alarm's going off. I don't know. I feel like I need to go to a doctor, but I'm constantly just nauseous, and I don't really know why. I have tried to.
Standing behind him for a brief moment was a pale human-shaped figure. It appeared for only a second before disappearing from view. Thinking it might be a trick of the camera, Dustin continued recording throughout the night. That's when things became even harder to explain. The same figure kept showing up. Sometimes it appeared in mirror reflections. Other times it stood motionless at the far end of a hallway before vanishing moments later. Each sighting was brief, but there were too many of them to dismiss as coincidence. By the end of the shift, Dustin was convinced he hadn't been alone in that hotel. What unsettled him most wasn't the figure itself, but the possibility that it had been following him all night without him ever realizing it. And as for the constant nausea he had been experiencing, Dustin couldn't help but wonder if that was somehow connected too. The man in our next story only saw his visitor once, but one glimpse was enough to send him running for his life. Number 4. The smell of death. Late one night, a delivery driver named Sam was transporting goods through a remote area of Thailand when his truck suddenly broke down near a bridge surrounded by local ghost stories. The bridge had a reputation among residents who claimed strange things happened there after dark.
Tiba mesin ku sing keder dudu iki dudu apa lur ya nah bener wingi geter iki lur wingi geter mesinku soak.
But Sam wasn't interested in superstition. He just wanted to get his truck running again. Grabbing a flashlight, he stepped outside and immediately noticed a horrible smell lingering in the air. At first, he assumed it was roadkill somewhere nearby, but as he searched around the vehicle, the odor only grew stronger. Then he heard movement beneath the truck. Thinking an animal might be trapped underneath, Sam crouched down and aimed his flashlight under the chassis. What he saw caused him to instantly recoil in horror. Hanging beneath the truck were what appeared to be pale human legs. The skin looked rotten and discolored, dangling motionless only a few feet from where he stood. Panicking, Sam rushed around the vehicle expecting to find someone hiding there. There was nobody. He checked every side of the truck and scanned the darkness around the bridge, but the road remained completely empty. Whatever he had just seen had vanished within seconds. Refusing to spend another moment at the location, Sam abandoned the truck and ran to seek help, rather than wait alone in the darkness. This encounter was a pair of rotting legs hanging beneath a truck. The next one began with 2 bare feet peeking out from beneath a door. Number 5. The security guard's discovery. A security guard named Trevor was carrying out a routine patrol inside an abandoned industrial facility when something strange happened. He had been investigating a leaking ventilation unit when a nearby door suddenly creaked open on its own. Before he could react, the door violently slammed shut. Assuming someone might be hiding inside the building, Trevor cautiously approached and slowly pushed the door open again. The moment the gap widened, he heard what sounded like laughter coming from inside the room. The sound was enough to make him immediately slam the door shut and back away. At first, he tried convincing himself it was just his imagination, but as he stood there listening, his breathing began getting heavier. Then something caught his eye. Beneath the gap at the bottom of the door, he could clearly see what appeared to be two bare feet standing perfectly still on the other side. Convinced he had finally found a trespasser, Trevor grabbed a nearby crowbar and prepared to confront whoever was hiding inside. Using his foot to force the door open, he quickly stepped back and raised the crowbar. But the room was empty. There was nobody there. No other exits. No place for anyone to hide. Whatever had been standing behind that door was gone. Days later, Trevor returned for another overnight shift. But this time things became far more disturbing. While making his rounds, he began hearing violent metal noises coming from one specific room deep inside the building. Thinking someone had broken in, he followed the sounds and cautiously stepped inside.
Please protect me, God. I guess we're doing this. Hello? Shit. What the fuck? Whoa. Hello? Who's there? Hello?
The moment he entered, the activity exploded around him. Mannequins suddenly toppled over without anything touching them. Glass shattered somewhere nearby. Loud banging echoed through the room. Then, through the chaos, Trevor heard something that stopped him cold. A woman was crying. The sound was faint at first, but grew louder the deeper he moved into the room. The sobbing echoed through the darkness, coming from somewhere he couldn't see. He ran out as fast as he could. Whatever Trevor heard in that abandoned building wanted him to keep searching. The next man spent years doing exactly that inside his own home. Number 6. It's not his wife. For nearly a decade, a man documented strange activity inside his home, while convincing himself that the presence might somehow be connected to his late wife. At first, the disturbances were minor. Cabinets would occasionally be left open. Small objects would appear in unusual places. Every strange event could be explained away if he tried hard enough. But then, things started getting worse. One morning, he walked into his kitchen and found a chair positioned in the middle of the room, despite nobody having moved it.
Because I got to get to work. But when I got up this morning to get my coffee, I walked into the kitchen and saw this. So I guess you guys were right that activity seems to be picking up because I have been, doing renovations. I replaced all this stuff, this dishwasher, this stove, the oven hood there. But this morning when I came into the kitchen, oh, it's making this. Whoa! Okay, see, I didn't even move. I wasn't even moving.
Curious, he checked his security footage and noticed something chilling. Chair slowly rotated on its own before violently sliding across the floor. Not long afterward, another incident convinced him he was dealing with something far darker. While investigating strange noises coming from the hallway, he suddenly felt what he described as a person standing directly behind him.
I'm gonna go into the hallway and see if I can hear. That sounds like it's down at the end of the hallway. Like right back there. Holy f- that felt like somebody.
The sensation was so strong that he froze in place. He could feel a presence only inches away from his back, yet when he turned around, nobody was there. Later, while reviewing additional footage, he claimed he could hear faint whispers begging for help. The experience left him shaken, but what truly terrified him was the realization that whatever occupied the house didn't feel familiar at all. It didn't feel like his wife. It felt hostile. As the activity continued escalating, he became convinced that something dangerous might be hiding in the attic above him, watching and waiting. And according to him, that's when he stopped trying to communicate with it and started looking for ways to leave. The nightmare for our next guy began much faster, shortly after bringing home an object he probably should have left alone. Number 7. The doll in the kitchen. A man named Leandro never expected a simple decoration to turn his life upside down. After purchasing a doll to hang in his kitchen, strange things began happening throughout his home. At first, the incidents seemed harmless. Small noises during the night, objects that appeared slightly out of place. But before long, the activity became impossible to ignore. One night, Leandro was awakened by loud crashes coming from the kitchen. Terrified, he called for his mother before investigating. When they entered the room, they tried to turn the doll forward. But then, it appeared to move by itself.
Cuidado, vira ela pra frente. Ui.
Ela vira de costas
Eu não vou
toda
dormir
vez
isso
que
daqui
arrumava
em casa,
ela pra
não.
frente.
Não, vira ela pra frente. Aí. Aí.
Você põe nela.
Como assim?
Eu tô voando.
Sei lá. O trem começou a se mexer do nada. Olha lá.
Eu tô voando aqui.
Olha lá a mão dela. Ui.
Você
Joga
fez?
fora.
Para, amigo, pelo amor de Deus.
Oi.
At first, they questioned whether their eyes were playing tricks on them. Then the incidents escalated. Another night, Leandro woke to the sound of pots and pans crashing onto the floor. As he walked through the house filming, he showed viewers that nobody else was inside. That's when something happened that convinced him he was no longer dealing with coincidence. A chair suddenly launched itself across the room directly toward him. The violent movement sent him into a panic. According to Leandro, the activity only grew more aggressive afterward. He eventually became convinced that whatever was attached to the doll had entered his home and was becoming increasingly hostile. Whether the doll was responsible or merely a coincidence remains unknown. But Leandro later admitted he seriously considered abandoning the house altogether. Leandro believed the activity started after the doll arrived. For Kamakali, the nightmare began the moment he moved in. Number 8. The haunted apartment. After relocating from Greenland to Denmark for work, a factory worker named Kamakali thought he had found a quiet apartment where he could start a new chapter of his life. Instead, he walked straight into a nightmare. Not long after moving in, strange things began happening around the apartment. Doors slammed shut for no reason. Knocking echoed through empty rooms. Objects repeatedly fell from shelves despite being placed securely. At first, Kaisi tried to ignore it, convincing himself there had to be a logical explanation. But the activity only grew more aggressive. One afternoon, he heard strange noises coming from another room and decided to record. As he searched for the source, a door suddenly slammed shut directly in front of him. Days later, things became even worse. A cupboard door slowly opened on its own, while his helmet inexplicably slid across the floor without anyone touching it. Then came the moment that truly terrified him. While live streaming from his apartment late one evening, Kaisi heard objects falling in another room. As he investigated, drawers began opening by themselves right in front of the camera. Panic took over and he fled the apartment building. But once outside, he looked back toward his window and noticed something standing inside. A dark figure appeared to be staring directly down at him from within the apartment. What makes the story even more chilling is that years earlier, a man had reportedly been murdered right outside the apartment's front door. Whether that fact is connected to the strange events remains unknown, but Kayali became convinced he wasn't living there alone. Some places feel wrong the moment you enter them. During the next encounter, a man named Daniel discovered something even worse. Let's find out what happened. Number 9. Whatever followed him home. Daniel had spent years exploring abandoned locations rumored to be cursed, haunted, or connected to strange legends. Most of the time, he left disappointed, finding nothing more than old buildings and exaggerated stories. But one exploration seemed different. Deep inside an abandoned underground tunnel covered in strange symbols and graffiti, Daniel felt an overwhelming sense of unease. He eventually left and returned home, assuming nothing had happened. Within days, however, his apartment began changing. Footsteps echoed through empty rooms in the middle of the night. Doors slowly opened on their own. Knocking came from a spare room that was supposed to be locked. Convinced someone had somehow entered his apartment, Daniel began recording whenever the activity occurred.
Señora, estoy grabando porque estoy escuchando otra vez los sonidos. Escuche. ¿Qué cojones? ¡Hostia! Acaba de encender otra vez el aparato ese. ¿Por qué encenderse eso?
Every room he searched appeared empty, yet the disturbances continued. Then one night, he heard something that genuinely frightened him. Coming from near the bathroom was the unmistakable sound of a child crying.
Coño. Mire. ¿Qué coño?
The sobbing was faint, but clear enough that he immediately grabbed his camera and approached. As he neared the bathroom, the shower curtain slowly shifted as though someone was standing behind it. Daniel froze. The crying stopped. Gathering his courage, he rushed forward and pulled the curtain aside. Nobody was there. The bathroom was completely empty. No child, no intruder, nothing. Daniel later admitted that he became convinced whatever he encountered inside that underground tunnel had followed him home, and judging by the footage, it may not have finished making its presence known. Daniel spent months wondering what was sharing his apartment, but Jorge, the man in our next story, never had that problem. He saw it staring right back at him. Number 10, the face in the back seat. After finishing a late-night shift, a rideshare driver named Jorge was heading home through quiet, nearly deserted streets. The night had been uneventful, but somewhere along the drive, he began feeling strangely uneasy. At first, he brushed it off as exhaustion after spending hours behind the wheel, but the feeling refused to go away.
Sí, en la cámara se ve a alguien sentado atrás. Y pues no hay nadie.
In fact, it only intensified. Jorge later said it felt as though someone was sitting directly behind him, silently watching his every move. Trying to calm his nerves, he glanced at the monitor connected to the interior security camera. The moment he looked, his heart nearly stopped. Reflected on the screen was what appeared to be a pale face sitting in the back seat. The figure didn't move. It simply stared at him from the darkness. Startled, Jorge immediately spun around, expecting to find a forgotten passenger in the car. But the back seat was completely empty. There was nobody there. Disturbed by what he had seen, he drove the rest of the way home, trying to convince himself there had to be a reasonable explanation. But the following morning brought another unsettling twist. When Jorge went outside to start his car, the vehicle suddenly wouldn't work, despite running perfectly just hours earlier. The experience left him convinced that whatever appeared on that camera hadn't stayed inside the car that night. Even now, Jorge believes something may have followed him home. Jorge saw the figure only once. Melissa wasn't nearly that lucky. Whatever was watching her kept coming back. Let's check out her story. Number 11. The shadow outside the window. A woman named Melissa had spent weeks documenting strange activity inside her home.
Se está moviendo la puerta. Se está moviendo la puerta. Es que no hay nadie, o sea, puede ser un fantasma. Prefiero que sea un fantasma. La Chloe está hacia abajo. Arriba yo no voy porque arriba sí me da miedo. Pero la Chloe está viendo para allá. Ay, no, yo me va a ver.
One night, it began with small things. Doors would creak open on their own. Unexplained sounds seemed to move from room to room. Her dog constantly stared into empty spaces and reacted to noises nobody else could hear. One night, the activity became impossible to ignore. Around 3 o'clock in the morning, Melissa noticed something outside one of her windows. Standing motionless in the darkness was what appeared to be a human-shaped silhouette. The figure wasn't walking past the house. It wasn't trying to hide. It was simply standing there watching.
En realidad grabé. Esta, vean ahí como una silueta de algo y si se ve como que una luz afuera es porque el farol no se apaga. Vean, aquí le tomé captura y se ve mejor. Es una silueta de alguien ahí parado como que en la ventana. Eso sí.
Melissa quickly grabbed her phone and managed to photograph it before it disappeared into the darkness. What made the image especially disturbing was how clearly the outline resembled a person, despite having no visible features whatsoever. The figure appeared completely black from head to toe. According to Melissa, the sightings didn't stop after that night. In fact, they became more frequent. The same shadowy silhouette reportedly continued appearing around the property, always standing at a distance and always disappearing before anyone could approach it. Eventually, Melissa admitted she no longer felt comfortable staying in the house alone because she couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching her from outside. Melissa's shadow remained outside the house, but the next family's encounter came from somewhere much closer. Number 12. The basement door. One evening, a father and his young son were relaxing at home when a loud bang suddenly echoed from somewhere inside the house.
Is it real?
Yeah.
Can you get it now?
Stay there.
At first, he assumed something had simply fallen over. But then another bang followed, and another. Each impact seemed louder than the last, shaking the quiet home and instantly putting both of them on edge. Grabbing his phone, the father cautiously made his way toward the basement door, convinced the noise was coming from downstairs. He slowly opened it and peered into the darkness. Nothing. The basement appeared completely empty. Confused, he shut the door and turned away. That's when another violent rattling sound erupted behind him. This time it was coming from the pantry door elsewhere in the house. Startled, he rushed over and pulled it open, quickly flicking on the lights. Once again, there was nothing there. No person. Nothing that could explain the noise. Over the next few minutes, the activity seemed to play a terrifying game with him. Whenever he checked one area, the banging would suddenly start somewhere else. One door would rattle violently, only for another to begin shaking moments later. It was as if something unseen was moving through the house, staying one step ahead of him. His son watched in growing panic as the noises continued from both locations. The father tried to remain calm, but the relentless banging and the complete lack of any explanation began wearing on him. Eventually, realizing he wasn't getting any answers and unwilling to risk putting his son in danger, he grabbed the boy and headed upstairs. The footage ends without revealing what caused the disturbances. In our final story, two friends would come face to face with the very thing that had been following them all night. Number 13. The figure following them home. Two friends were walking home late one night after a party when they noticed something that immediately felt wrong. Standing motionless near the side of the road was a lone figure. At first they assumed it was simply someone waiting for a ride or talking on a phone, but the longer they looked, the stranger it became. The figure wasn't moving at all. It stood completely frozen in place, staring in their direction. Nervously laughing, the girls pulled out their phones and began recording as they walked past. A few minutes later, one of them glanced over her shoulder and felt her stomach drop. The figure was no longer where they had first seen it. Somehow it had moved much closer without either of them noticing. As they quickened their pace, the figure appeared to do the same. What started as nervous laughter quickly turned into genuine panic as they realized whatever was behind them seemed to be following them home. The girls sprinted inside and immediately locked every door and window they could find. But the nightmare only escalated from there. Strange noises echoed throughout the house. Objects began moving on their own. Glasses suddenly launched themselves from tables and shattered across the floor. At one point, a terrified scream came from another room, sending everyone running toward the sound, only to find the room completely empty. Even more disturbing, the figure seemed to appear wherever they turned, as if it had somehow entered the house with them. To this day, viewers remain divided over whether the footage captured an elaborate hoax or something far more sinister. Either way, those girls weren't the only people who discovered that some things refused to stay outside. And if you thought these videos were disturbing, wait until you see what's waiting in the videos on your screen now. Click one and continue down the rabbit hole of some of the creepiest footage ever caught on camera.